The big dispute playing itself out right now in DC politics is whether the highly sensitive information shared in this group on the Signal chat platform was classified or not, bewildering Democrats who view the targeting details shared by the Secretary of Defence, Pete Hegseth, as some of the most closely held information, particularly as it was shared just hours ahead of the discussed strikes in Yemen. The reporter who was included initially declined to publish the exact details of the chat, given the national security sensitivities around its contents, but has since done so after officials claimed that nothing shared in the chat was classified. The Atlantic magazine says there is a clear public interest in disclosing the sort of information that Trump advisors included in non-secure communications channels, especially because senior administration figures are attempting to downplay the significance of the messages that were shared. Take this exchange in Tuesday's Senate Select Committee on Intelligence.
There was no classified material that was shared in that.
So then if there were no classified material, share it with the committee. You can't have it both ways. These are important jobs. This is our national security. Bobbing and weaving and trying to, filibuster your answer. So please answer the question. If this was Director Gabbard, if this was a rank and file intelligence officer who did this kind of careless behavior, what would you do with them?
Senator, I'll reiterate that there was no classified material that was shared in that.
And if there's no classified materials, share.
In the group chat, Defence Secretary Hegseth posted ahead of the first Houthi strike times and details of warplane launches. A strike window targeting a Houthi operative described in the chain as a terrorist, later indicating the launch of more F-18 warplanes, information on strike drones on target, providing the exact time when the first bombs would drop, and later a second strike time which included information on the first sea-based Tomahawk missiles that were launched. But officials have since downplayed the information shared, attacking the journalist instead.
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does.
The attack was totally successful. It was, I guess, from what I understand, took place during, and it wasn't classified information. So this was not classified. Now, if it's classified information, it's probably a little bit different. But I always say you have to learn from every experience. I think it was very unfair the way they attacked Michael. He's a good person. The person that was on just happens to be a sleazebag. So maybe that's just coincidence. I don't know.
The Atlantic magazine argues that had the text chain been received by hostile actors to the United States, the Houthis would have had time to prepare for what was supposed to be a surprise attack in an effort to secure shipping lanes targeted by the group in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden.
In the end of the day, governments, companies have to make decisions about the best way to communicate. There's always going to be some margin of risk in any way that you communicate. But a communications platform where you have total control over it, as we see deployed in many military organizations, for example, is probably the best way forward. But in this case, it's just an example of where human error has resulted in messages being shared to people they shouldn't have gone to, and that really was nothing to do with the technology. However, in the case of this Atlantic issue that we've seen, the challenge is very much more around a human failure than the technology failure. And this is typically often the case with security breaches. It's rarely the technology that lets people down. It's actually the decisions of the people using the technology that cause the problems.
US officials, including the Director of National Intelligence and the National Security Advisor, have since conceded it was a mistake that a reporter was added to the Signal chat. While Signal is a highly secure and encrypted platform, a Pentagon-wide advisory on March 18th, just days after the principal's Yemen chat group was created, warned against using the app even for unclassified information. First reported by NPR, the bulletin said a vulnerability had been identified in the Signal Messenger application and that Russian professional hacking groups were employing the link devices feature to spy on encrypted conversations. Congressional Democrats argue that the revelations reveal widespread mismanagement of classified information under the Trump administration and have called for the Defense Secretary and the National Security Advisor to resign. Sherman Briceby, SABC News, New York.